Hello everyone and welcome back to Beast Wars Backtrack. I'm your host Ross13 and today we are looking at the Transformers War for Cybertron Trilogy Covert Agent Ravage set. I am super psyched to show this off to you guys. I just got it in and my wife got it for me for anniversary, so it's all kinds of special and I just can't wait. But before we take a look at the figure, as always, we need to take a look at the packaging since we have it on hand. And really, the packaging is one of the draws on this thing. It has a very cool sort of diorama thing going on in here, including a little slot for the original G1 Ravage on here. Let's get a closer look at things here. You can see we got the new version of Beast Wars Ravage all tied up on the plastic tray. We have the silver cannons for G1 Ravage and the sort of pistols that this Ravage uses. And he looks very much like his show model, but we'll get more into that later. We can see him in the cockpit area of his special ship. I can't remember if it had a name or not, but it was pretty darn cool looking. Down here we have the War for Cybertron Trilogy logo, Covert Agent Ravage, Decepticon Forever Ravage, got Transformers, Generations, Hasbro logo, nothing really down here. On the side we have a little write-up. It says, after the Great War, Ravage was one of the Decepticons granted amnesty and reformatted into a Predacon. As Covert Agent Ravage, he is secretly dispatched to Earth by the Decepticons Council during the Beast Wars. He is tasked with terminating the rogue Predacon called Megatron with extreme prejudice. But after the Golden Disc reveals a secret message from his long-dead Decepticon leader, he realizes where his allegiance lies. Decepticons forever. We got authentic Transformers thing on here, and then we have very cool illustration of Ravage turning into his cassette form, which is something he kind of did in the show. Got Beast Wars logo down here, and then that same illustration as before. Okay, that's enough rambling about the box. Let's get this guy opened up and see what he is about. So here is everything that comes in the box. We have our new Ravage figure, his pistols, the G1 Ravage, his weapons, this little diorama thing, and the instructions. And something interesting about the instructions is they're printed in full color. The colors are a bit muted, but it is full CMYK going on here, which is very unusual. I don't see that very often with Transformers instructions, so that's pretty darn cool. I don't know why they decided to do that. They could have easily have just printed this all in blue or something, but they decided to include the red and the green, and I guess since they were doing that, they were like, okay, let's just do everything in full color, so that is very neat. The diorama is just cardboard and doesn't really stay up very well. There's not much back here to keep it supported, so that's a little disappointing. We have a little slot here for his G1 self that just barely fits in there. This isn't very well designed. A bit of a disappointment. I was originally thinking about keeping the packaging and stuff like that. After seeing all this, I don't know if I'm going to or not. So, yeah. G1 Ravage here is G1 Ravage. Not a whole lot of new or surprising things on him. I've never actually had one myself, so this is still pretty cool. Though I don't have a G1 Soundwave in order to put him in. One thing that did surprise me, though, is these bits right here, they feel cold. So that tells me these are actually die-cast metal. So they are still manufacturing some Transformers with die-cast metal. It's not as lost of an art as one might think. Looking closely at this, you can also see that they have the tape detail tampoed on here as opposed to a sticker, so that's nice. This is not going to come off quite as easily. Things do get a little muddled here, though. Well, let's go ahead and get this guy transformed. Here he is in his robot mode, which is a robot panther, and looks pretty cool, but he is very, very flat. But that's G1 Ravage for you. Again, I never had one of these, but I kind of went into this expecting him to be like this. The closest I've come to a G1 Ravage is I did have the Classics version that came with Hound. Sadly, that one is not easily accessible right now, otherwise I would compare the two. Not a whole lot of new stuff on this guy. When you get him into this mode, you do have some silver on his eyes there, but really everything that was in tape mode is here again in robot mode. And articulation, he does have movement at his limbs, but it's kind of weird. I'm surprised that he stays standing as well as he does. But he looks pretty cool for a G1 figure. Now, let's move on to the part that I'm sure all of you are waiting for. And here he is, Covert Ravage himself. I am super pleased with this so far. I haven't transformed him or anything like that, but so far everything looks really good. I was a little worried with some of the initial shots. I thought maybe the head might be a little small and that the legs were a little weird, but everything actually looks pretty decent in hand. I think the only thing I don't really care for is this, the way the legs are on the back for the beast mode. That just doesn't look super good to me, and I kind of wish that they did something else. Maybe have them cross in the back like what Tigertron and Cheetor do. But it is what it is, and everything else looks pretty good so far. Let's get a nice close look. This guy has quite a bit of paint on him. Looks like these bits of silver, which is actually kind of a goldish silver, at least under this light, is all paint. Got some sort of brownish gold here and here, and the very popping red eyes there. Very nice. His pistols can store on his legs, and then you just take them out, and I believe these are 5mm ports, so you can just put them on his hands or any other guy that has those kind of ports on them. Articulation wise, we got some nice movement with the head, most likely thanks to transformation. And if I remember correctly, yep, you can even open his mouth, and oh my goodness, they actually painted the teeth and the tongue. I don't know how well you can see it here because the lighting is making it hard, but that's really cool. Got a universal joint for the shoulder. Some of these are very tight. I think these joints here and here, as well as on the ankle, are very tight because they got paint on them. So they're a little bit on the paint stuck side. So be wary of that. Anyway, we got double jointed elbow, rotation for the wrist. We got waist rotation. Nice. Universal hips. Yep. Pretty decent range, though not back. This part blocks that. You got a tail that can move. Single jointed knee that doesn't give you quite 90 degree. Got a hinge on the ankle, and then another hinge for tilt. So you can get them in some pretty decent A stances. Really not bad. I'm very impressed with this. Though considering this is a bit of a premium figure, you'd think that they would, put in the effort. Quick comparison next to Cheetor. They share some parts, but not as many as you would think. It looks like it's mostly like the lower legs and lower arms, and everything else is pretty much its own thing. I think the beast legs might be the same, but even that I'm not 100% sure. So it's kind of cool what they're doing with, sort of stretching the definition of retool. But it's also cool to see these guys together. This guy feels a little bit bigger. The way he's designed, he stands a little bit taller than Cheetor. Not by much, but enough to kind of give him a little bit of intimidation factor on him. Anyway, let's go ahead, get this guy transformed. So this is interesting. I believe my Ravage has his front legs on the wrong side. I was comparing him to Cheetor, and if you look, the way they're shaped, I believe they're the same mold, or at least very close to it, but the shapes are different, and he doesn't have the right bend. They're backwards, I think. So, hold on a sec. Okay, now that I got him all properly assembled, here he is. And he looks pretty darn good. I'm actually pleasantly surprised. The pictures I had been seeing of him made him look like maybe he'd be a little on the thin side and make me not want to keep him in beast mode at all, but he actually looks really good in hand. Kind of the same thing I said about his robot mode. So I am super pleased with how this came out. Another neat little feature is you can still keep his guns on him even in beast mode. You just use the same holsters as before, and it gets sort of a G1 Ravage effect. Very cool. His beast mode is pretty darn impressive, and the transformation to get it there is actually really cool too. Something that I didn't realize he did that I just absolutely adore is these panels right here are actually from his arms, and they just sort of push through his back, and it's just a very, very cool process. Also like this little neck cover thing that we have going here. Not sure why there's a hole right there. Maybe that's something that pegs in when he's back in robot mode, but it's a little bit on the odd side. I think the only thing I don't care for is I don't like the little white spot here, but that's because it's his robot mode head, so it's gonna have that no matter what. But it looks really cool, and articulation wise is pretty decent too. You got the same movement that we have in the head, though things are angled a little bit funny. You do have the opening and closing jaw. You have a ball joint here, which thankfully it was a ball joint because that meant I could easily take this off and put it back on. You have waist rotation, and you can move the hind legs around, and you can move the tail. So pretty decent articulation for a beast former. You don't always get that sometimes. I do wish the camera was picking things up a little bit better. He's a very dark shade of black, so it just absorbs all the light and doesn't let anything out. And there's actually quite a bit of detail here, and I don't think the camera is doing it any favors. But trust me, he looks pretty darn cool. If you look at him from this way, yes, you're going to see visible robot everything. But it's pretty darn cool, I think, and I am willing to overlook this, particularly since Beast Wars Transformers are known for this kind of thing, and sacrifices are going to have to be made. Real quick, let's go ahead and compare him to Cheetor. Specifically, this is the Netflix Cheetor, which I can't remember if I've shown off to you guys or not. I'm going to have to double check. If I haven't, then I got another review to film at some point. So, as you can see, I believe these share the exact same legs here and the hind legs here. But everything else is pretty darn different. He even looks like he's a little bit wider. Yeah, considerably. I wish I had the Kingdom Tigertron. I'm not even sure if that is out yet or not, but I wish I had that to kind of bring in with these guys. I really think I'm going to have to get, what were they calling him? Tropicus Agent? Shadow Panther. Because this is just a really fun mold, and its variations are enticing me. I don't normally go in for mold variants, but I think in this case I may make an exception. While we're at it, here he is next to his past self. A little bit of a difference. Oh, come on. You were standing earlier. This guy is so two-dimensional, it's kind of hard to get him to stand. There we go. So you can definitely see where they pulled all the color influences and stuff. Would have been kind of neat if maybe they put some silver on his legs there, but that would have defeated the idea of him being a at least mostly organic looking panther. So yeah, overall this is a pretty cool set for Ravage alone. I think having G1 Ravage is pretty cool, but doesn't do a whole lot for me, and for some people it's probably going to do even less because they may already have a Ravage. So that's just something to be aware of. And this guy does go for a more premium price. So again, you got to think about that before you buy it. But I think if you can afford it, pick this guy up. He is phenomenal. Highly, highly recommend him. And yeah, I think that is enough rambling from me. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun YouTube stuff. Check the description below for links to my storefront where you can get official shelf space t-shirts and more. And yeah, thank you again. And I'll see all of you the next time we're back on Beast Wars Backtrack.